We showed you what 13 types of food look like around the world, from sandwiches to dumplings.
Noodles have been around for centuries, and a lot of people might associate their origins with Chinese or Italian dishes, but they've made their mark in tons of countries.
Dishes like spaghetti and meatballs, or ramen, have a history that you might not know about. Here's how noodles are eaten around the world. China is home to a variety of cuisines and noodles, but a particularly popular noodle dish is jjajangmyeon. The name translates to fried sauce noodles. Wheat noodles are mixed with a sauce made by stir-frying ground pork or beef with fermented soybean paste. It's usually served with fresh or pickled vegetables. Japchae is a popular Korean noodle dish. It was invented in the 17th century, but was first made without noodles or meat. The legend is that King Kwanghae was holding a palace banquet and Yi Chung served him the dish. The king loved it so much that he promoted Chung to Secretary of Treasury. Today, the dish is made with glass noodles made from sweet potato starch and served with vegetables and seasoned meat. The dish is especially popular during Korean holidays. Italy has hundreds of pasta dishes, but one of its ancient classics is cacio e pepe. It means cheese and pepper. Legend has it that in Roman times, shepherds would take their sheep to graze in the mountains. The shepherds would bring homemade pasta with them and cook it, then combine it with the cheese they made out of the milk they collected from their sheep. The dish consists of black pepper, grated pecorino romano cheese, and spaghetti. It's simple but delicious. Did you know spaghetti and meatballs were actually created in the United States, not Italy? But it's associated with Italy because it was created by Italian immigrants. 4 million Italians immigrated to the United States between 1880 and 1920. Most came from southern Italy and went from spending 75% of their income on food in Italy to 25% in America. With the boost in income, more meat was consumed in larger quantities, which in turn gave us meatballs. Canned tomatoes and spaghetti were part of the few items available at grocery stores, and hence the dish was born. This is another noodle dish that didn't exist until immigrants created it. Hawaii has a rich mix of cultures that has resulted in a distinct cuisine. Saimin is Hawaii's version of ramen, inspired by a blend of Japanese and Chinese culture. It's made up of thicker, chewier noodles that are cooked in a dashi broth and topped with bok choy, mushrooms, ginger, char siu, and spam. This Afghan dish calls for thick noodles and legumes in a tomato-based broth with spices like turmeric. It contains chili, beef, and loads of vegetables and gets topped with yogurt. This hearty meal from Egypt is full of different ingredients. It was created around the 1800s and made for an affordable vegan dish families can make with their remaining ingredients. To make koshari, mix rice, macaroni, lentils, chickpeas, and crispy fried onions with tomato and garlic sauce. This noodle dish is a dessert. Roasted vermicelli noodles are boiled in milk and ghee and flavored with cardamom, saffron, nuts, and dried fruits. This dish originated in the Indian subcontinent but has regional variations. Also known as payasam, this dish is often served in Hindu temples or in celebrations like weddings or pujas. Similar variations are eaten for Muslim holidays like Eid. It can be served hot or chilled. With about 5,000 ramen shops in Tokyo alone, many people associate ramen with Japan. But the dish is actually an adaptation of Chinese wheat noodles.
I'm here at Tabe Tomo, home to the largest bowl of tsukemen in New York City and other traditional ramen dishes. I'm able to enjoy this bowl of ramen because of years of rich history.
Chinese immigrants introduced ramen to Japan in the late 19th century. It became popular after World War II, when Japan was struggling and many of its citizens had to rely on black markets for food. With a food shortage, including a drastic reduction in rice, the US was importing large amounts of wheat into Japan. Vendors used this wheat to make ramen, but during this time, it was illegal to buy or sell restaurant food. The United States had upheld Japan's ration control laws during their occupation, so thousands of ramen vendors were arrested. By 1950, the government relaxed these restrictions and ramen vendors rose in popularity.
Today, ramen isn't the simple dish it once was, but its history is the reason it's enjoyed by thousands of people every day.
Sour, sweet, and salty, Thailand's national dish was created in the 1930s by the country's then prime minister. The Thai economy was struggling during World War II, and the government encouraged rice noodles to be eaten instead of rice. Rice noodles were both cheap and filling. The stir-fried noodles are paired with vegetables, bean sprouts, and a protein like chicken or tofu. Mie goreng is a popular Indonesian fried noodle dish that's also eaten in surrounding regions like Singapore and Malaysia. It's thought that it was introduced to Indonesia by Chinese immigrants. It's made with yellow egg noodles, garlic, egg, chili sauce, a sweet soy sauce, veggies, and some kind of protein. It's topped with crispy shallots and lime juice. The main star of this meal is the fresh lobster caught off the coast of Greece. This dish serves lobster meat with tomato sauce, usually served with wine and lots of herbs on a bed of spaghetti. The lobster is traditionally served right in the shell and with plenty of parsley. Taiwan's national dish is another meal with outside origins. Wheat noodles are eaten with braised beef and greens in a stock simmered with beef bones. Originally Chinese, the dish became distinctly Taiwanese with the additions of pickled greens and signature spices. It's sold all over the island, and prices range from a few dollars to a few hundred. Pho was born in northern Vietnam but is popular throughout the country. The flavor changes depending on the region. It first appeared in the 19th century, which is around the time the French began to colonize Vietnam. Some culinary experts believe it to be a creation formed from mixing French and Vietnamese cuisine. It consists of broth made by simmering bones and herbs, rice noodles, and a type of meat, usually beef. It's typically served with lime, basil, and bean sprouts. Sopa criolla comes from Peru but changes with the region. It's typically homemade, and the basics usually include meat, onion, garlic, ají panca, tomato, egg, milk, and angel hair noodles. The background for the dish is thought to be influenced by a mix of Peru's cultures. Tabetomo brews their ramen broth for 60 hours in-house. But if you don't have that kind of time, you might be familiar with instant ramen. It's quick, easy to make, and great on a tight budget. One popular brand of instant ramen is called Indomie. Created in Indonesia, the brand is popular in countries all over, notably Nigeria. Indomie's manufacturer partnered with a Nigerian food company in the late 80s. When Indomie was marketed in Nigeria, the company argued it was as important as rice and bread. And due to the population boom in the country, it's been marketed as a quick and easy meal for busy mothers. Today, many Nigerians might not even associate Indomie with Indonesia because it's such a large part of Nigeria's culture.
Sandwiches.
Food historians believe this portable meal was popularized in England in 1762 by John Montagu, the 4th Earl of Sandwich. Apparently, he ordered a cook to prepare an easy-to-eat meal so he could gamble freely.
It's unlikely he or his cook were the first people to put food between bread. This concept existed way before that, and even today, variations can be seen across the globe. So let's take a look at some of the sandwiches you should try when traveling around the world.
The Vietnamese banh mi is a French baguette filled with either roast chicken or pork infused with savory ingredients like slices of cucumber, chili pepper, cilantro, sour pickled daikon, and carrot, mayo, and Maggi sauce. For many years, the banh mi has been a staple street food in Vietnam. French culture, including the French baguette, has heavily influenced Vietnamese culture because of the French occupation and colonization of Vietnam between the 17th and 20th centuries. The Vietnamese version of the French baguette is slightly fluffier.
Similar to Vietnam's banh mi, this Laotian sandwich also uses the French baguette.
Khao Ji can be found on almost every street corner in Laos. It's filled with pork belly, ham, tomato, lettuce, carrots, cheese, and chili sauce. The doner kebab is an essential sandwich in Turkey. Pieces of seasoned meat are skewered onto a rotating spit and grilled vertically. Traditionally, lamb is the meat of choice, but nowadays, other meats such as beef are used. The meat is shaved from the spit and placed between bread, topped with grilled vegetables, sauces, cheese, and a dash of lemon juice. You can find many variations of the doner kebab all throughout Europe, especially in Germany. Berlin is filled with food stalls that sell the Turkish sandwiches. In the 1960s, Turkish citizens migrated to Germany as laborers. Turkish immigrant Kadir Nurman has been credited with creating the sandwich during the 1970s in Berlin, though it's likely that there was a similar concept that existed in Turkey as well.
While its origins are a bit unclear, it's safe to say our love for the doner kebab is very clear, due to the fact that they're available worldwide. And since we're talking about love, this next sandwich is a personal favorite of mine, because I grew up eating it.
If you enjoy roast pork, you have to try it in Cuban bread, which is like a crispy baguette. It's layered with ham, cheese, pickles, mustard, and a little bit of garlic if you're up for it. The Cuban sandwich, or cubano, is not actually even from Cuba. Yep, it was created in Tampa, Florida, by Cuban immigrants. But the influence of Cuba's love for roast pork shines through in this creation. However, if you're looking for a sandwich that actually originated in Cuba, try a medianoche. It's almost identical to a cubano, except the bread is a sweet egg-based bread. Japan's popular katsu sando is a must-try. This sandwich is typically made with fried breaded pork cutlets, a few shreds of cabbage, and tonkatsu sauce tucked between 2 slices of Japanese milk bread. Nowadays, any type of protein can be used, such as Wagyu beef, egg salad, or fish. Mr. Katsu in Southern California serves a 17-layer version of the pork katsu sando. This popular omelet sandwich has made its mark in Malaysia, Singapore, and Indonesia. You can find roti john sold at street stalls throughout these 3 countries. A mixture of eggs, minced meat, onions, and cheese is spread onto a griddle. An open-faced baguette is placed on top and toasted over the omelet until the outside of the sandwich becomes crispy. Garnishes like sambal sauce, tomato sauce, and mayo can be added on top for extra flavor.
300 million sandwiches are eaten by Americans each day. And according to a YouGov survey, America's favorite sandwich? The grilled cheese. Now, I can honestly say I've traveled around the world in search of great cheese, so I can appreciate a solid grilled cheese sandwich. We're here at Murray's Cheese, which was voted the best place to get a grilled cheese sandwich in New York City by my friend and co-producer, Karen Rowe.
Grilled cheese became an American classic after the 1920s. Pre-sliced white bread and processed cheese became available, and soon American families were cooking it up in their homes. But this comfort food went beyond the household. It was found in government-issued cookbooks during World War II, and diners also began advertising it on menus.
So, Murray's Cheese has basically perfected the grilled cheese sandwich by taking a special blend of cheese and butter and then sandwiching it between crispy bread. Oh my gosh.
Calling all cheese lovers, this Brazilian sandwich is called bauru. Slices of roast beef and melted cheese are tucked between a French roll along with tomatoes and pickles. China's steamed guabao is a traditional favorite. It originated in Fuzhou and became popular in Taiwan when Fujianese immigrants brought it over. A flat steamed bao is folded over braised pork with sweet peanuts and coriander leaves. As you can see, this is much more than a sandwich. Portugal's francesinha is typically eaten with a knife and fork. In the late 1950s, a French resident in Portugal named Daniel Silva created the sandwich. Francesinha translates to Little French Lady. It's usually made with a stack of ham, steak, sausage, egg, and cheese, and topped with a tangy sauce. In Guyana, this sandwich is a party and road trip favorite. The quick recipe is ideal for any occasion, really. Cheese paste is more than just cheese between bread. Instead, sharp cheddar cheese is grated and mixed with butter, mayo, pepper, mustard, garlic, and pepper sauce. The creamy finish is spread between 2 slices of white bread. And since we're talking about spreads, India has a similar take. The chutney sandwich is a striking green or red spread laid between 2 slices of bread. For green chutney mix, use fresh cilantro and green chilies. Red chilies are used for the red spread. Uruguay is said to have some of the world's best beef. Chivito is a steak sandwich enjoyed all throughout the South American country. It's also Uruguay's national dish. According to legend, an Argentine tourist walked into a restaurant asking for a sandwich to be made with chivo, or baby goat. The chef didn't have any goat meat and instead grilled a thin piece of steak. Variations today include toppings like cheese, eggs, bacon, pepper, mayo, lettuce, and tomatoes. It's also popular in Argentina, where it's known as lomito. Uruguay enjoys steak sandwiches, and so does Chile. This sandwich is called the chacarero. A roll holds thin churrasco steak with tomatoes, green beans, peppers, and mayo. Senegal's ndambe is a spicy bean sandwich. Black-eyed peas, which are really beans, are seasoned along with beef and spread between a baguette. Lentils are sometimes used instead. This type of sandwich is typically eaten for breakfast and is sold by street vendors all throughout Senegal. Sabich from Israel is a pita bread stuffed with fried eggplant, boiled eggs, salad, amba, and many other sauces. The sabich is actually an Iraqi-Israeli hybrid. When Iraqi Jewish refugees settled in Israel in the 1940s and 50s, they brought traditions like eating hard-boiled eggs, potatoes, and eggplant on Sabbath. Today, the sabich is a popular street food sold by vendors in Israel and is still eaten on the Sabbath.
So the UK is known for their love of chips, so why not make it a sandwich?
A chip buddy is simply thick-cut, deep-fried chips sandwiched between two buttered slices of white bread. Sauces like mayo and ketchup are added for flavor. You can find the chip buddy in English fish and chip shops. South Africans enjoy hot chips stuffed in footlongs, but this footlong is for sharing. The Gatsby sandwich is typically sliced into 4 portions and served as a long loaf stuffed with slap chips, polony, and achar. Today, many variations of the Gatsby sandwich are available throughout Cape Town. This Finnish sandwich is called porilainen. A thick slice of pork sausage is placed between 2 slices of white bread. The hamburger-like sandwich includes onions, pickles, garlic, and your choice of condiment. Eaten in both Venezuela and Colombia, the arepa is a cornmeal pocket that is grilled, fried, or baked, and filled with endless ingredients. Traditionally, arepas are cooked on flat griddles. They can be served with shredded meat like chicken or beef, or with soft white cheese. It's a popular street food in both countries and can be eaten during any time of day. This Danish sandwich comes in many combinations. Smørrebrød is basically an open-faced sandwich. Its main ingredients include spreads like butter, cold meats, seafood, and scallions. It's typically garnished with lemon and herbs. It can probably get messy, so feel free to eat it with a knife and fork. Trinidad and Tobago's bacon shark is pretty iconic to the sister islands. Bake, or fried flatbread, is filled with a fusion of fried shark, lettuce, tomatoes, cucumber, and coleslaw. Sauces like garlic sauce, mustard, pepper sauce, and mango chutney add flavor. This spicy snack is sold at stalls in Pakistan, night and day. The bun kebab resembles a burger with the patty typically being chicken, beef, or egg omelets. The patty is fried and served with onions and chutney.
Okay, those were a lot of sandwiches, but that just goes to show how important this portable meal is to so many cultures around the world. So which one was your favorite, and which other global foods would you like to see? Let us know in the comments below.
In these stressful and uncertain times of quarantine, people from all over the world are seeking comfort in food. Comfort food can fix any bad day. It's typically high in sugar, fat, and/or salt. And the beauty of comfort food is that it varies from person to person. It's rooted in where you're from and who you grew up with. We asked 20 people from different cultural backgrounds to share what comfort food is to them. I'll start with mine.
My favorite comfort food is kimchi jjigae or kimchi stew.
I'm Korean American, and growing up, my mom made kimchi jjigae pretty often for dinner. My mom's kimchi jjigae has that 손맛. 손맛 in Korean means like hand taste. The best way I can describe it is my mom's special touch. Even if I try to make my mom's kimchi jjigae here in New York City, I can't get that taste because it lacks my mom's special touch. So basically the flavors that you're getting are like spicy, salty, fatty, sour. It's basically everything that I crave when I'm missing my mom.
I'm Nigerian, and one of my favorite comfort foods has to be amala and okra soup. To make it, you take some yam flour and you pour it into boiling hot water, stir it up very quickly, and it gets to this nice thick consistency. From there, you portion it out to whatever size you'd like for your meal, and then you can dip it into your soup of choice. And not only is it a super tasty meal, but after you eat it, it hits you and it puts you in one of those nice food comas. I remember sneaking into the kitchen as a toddler and trying to tear off small pieces of amala or like the ear seeds that they put in the soup and taking it back to my playroom. So of course now, anytime that I have it, I just automatically think of home.
I'm Trinidadian, and my favorite comfort food is bacon saltfish. Bacon saltfish is a dish comprised of bake, which is dough rolled out, and a fish called bacalao. It's a salted cod that we chop up, we boil, and we saute with sweet tomatoes and sweet onions. I think it's my favorite comfort food just because it brings back a memory of my grandmother. She used to own a daycare, and whenever she was making something with dough, like bake, she would roll up little pieces of the dough and give it to the children to play with, and we would just go crazy for those little pieces of dough.
My favorite Haitian comfort food is griot. Griot is fried pork shoulder that has a special cut where it has just the right amount of fat and just the right amount of skin on it. You would season it well, bake it briefly, and then fry it. So after that, it'll get that nice crispy on the outside, tender on the inside taste. I can remember being as a child, every Haitian gathering, family party, if you had griot on your plate that night, you knew it was gonna be a good night.
My comfort food has always been pastina, which is like a really unhealthy version of Italian wedding soup. It has no vegetables, it's really just pasta and meatballs. So the way that my mom makes her meatballs is really what I always crave. She does a mix of ground pork, ground beef, and ground veal. And then she adds in just 5 ingredients. So the 5 ingredients are salt, pepper, garlic powder, parsley, and cheese. It's not just like Parmesan cheese, it's always Pecorino Romano cheese. That's like the go-to key ingredient. Whenever I go home or whenever I'm like sad or sick or whatever, that's what I want my mom to make me, or that's what I like want to eat.
I'm from New York, and my favorite comfort food is grilled cheese. Growing up as a picky eater, grilled cheese was the #1 thing I could get from every single family member and every single restaurant, and it be almost the exact same every single time. So today when I make grilled cheese for myself, I just use white or wheat bread, and I'll use white American cheese. It reminds me of being best friends with my mom.
I'm Allison Brown, and today we're going to talk about beef patties because that's my favorite Jamaican comfort food. Growing up, my father used to bring home like a box of beef patties, and he used to put them on the table, and it was first come, first serve, and if you did not get your beef patty, you would be tight. I love beef patties because of how diverse they are. You could get a beef patty, a callaloo patty, a ackee patty, any type of patty. My family is Jamaican, and they're from Jamaica. I'm American. I was born here, but when we go to Jamaica, it's over. The patties are like hot and ready. They're delicious.
I'm from New York. I'm Dominican, and my favorite comfort food is mango. Mango is basically like mashed potatoes, but instead of potatoes, it's plantains, and it's a breakfast food, so most Dominicans will eat it in the morning. Mango is typically eaten with cebollas on top, which is onions, queso frito on the side, which is fried cheese, salami, which is a type of meat, and usually like some people will get a fried egg on it. Personally, I love eggs, so I always get it on it. The reason why mango is my favorite comfort food, besides the fact that it's delicious, is because it just reminds me of being in the Dominican Republic and just like being around great weather, sunny, like just an all-around great vibe.
My comfort food is pepper pot. It came from Guyana's first people known as the Amerindians. Pepper pot is a meal that is boiled with casserole and spices and any choice of meat. But my personal favorite is beef. It can be eaten with anything: bread, cassava bread, rice, anything you would like. Pepper pot reminds me of Christmas time and all the family time and our rich culture in Guyana.
My favorite comfort food is congee, a type of rice porridge. It's often eaten with yao zha guai, also known as a Chinese donut. There are also many different types of congee. I've had it plain, with dried scallops, with preserved egg and salted pork, and just white fish. Growing up, my mom would make this for breakfast some days, and she would also make it for me when I was sick and I couldn't keep any solid foods down. My mom passed away in January of 2018, so the process of making congee and eating it reminds me of her love, her dedication, and her patience as my mother.
I'm Mexican American, and my favorite comfort food is tamales. Every year my grandma and her sisters get together and they all make tamales for us to eat on Christmas Eve, so it really reminds me of home and of Christmas time and of my family, so it's really special. My family makes the dish with shredded pork in a red chili sauce with green olives. Basically right now only my grandma and my aunts know how to make it, but they've started to teach me and my mom and my sisters how to do it, so that way we can pass it on to the next generation.
My favorite comfort food is Marmite on toast. It just has this really rich, really savory and quite salty flavor, and it's just really comforting, especially when it's put on some thickly buttered toast. I have very vivid memories of eating Marmite on toast, particularly when I was feeling a bit sick. I had an operation when I was 3 years old. I went under general anesthetic. When I woke up, the nurse said, "Is there anything we can get you?" And my first request was Marmite on toast.
My favorite comfort food is kuetiao, or Thai noodle soup. Thai noodle soup is the Thai equivalent of what deli sandwiches is to New Yorkers, and you can customize each kuetiao order to be your own. My go-to order is kuetiao pet, so duck noodle soup with senmi, which are the rice noodles that are thinner than the ones you have in pho. And I only will eat it in this one noodle shop, and I refuse to have it elsewhere because they just make it so special. And it sucks because I can't really replicate that experience in any Thai restaurant here since they don't really specialize in that.
My favorite comfort food are Colombian arepas. Arepas are cornmeal patties. They're typically made with salt, water, and masa arepa. This is my favorite comfort food because when I was a kid, my dad and I did not have matching schedules at all. So by the time we would get home, I was already sleeping, and we wouldn't see each other till the weekend. And at the weekends, our favorite family time activity was to make arepas. It was also the first meal I learned how to make. So we'd gather in our tiny kitchen, mold them together, put it in a stovetop, and then once they were ready and hot, my dad would put butter on top, mold them together, sprinkle it with a little bit of cheese. And it was delicious. And ready and hot. My dad would put butter on top, mold them together, sprinkle it with a little bit of top. And it was delicious. And ready and hot. My dad would put butter on top, mold them together, sprinkle it with a little bit of top. And it was delicious. And ready and hot. My dad would put butter on top, mold them together, sprinkle it with a little bit of top. And it was delicious. And ready and hot. My dad would put butter on top, mold them together, sprinkle it with a little bit of top. And it was delicious. And ready and hot. My dad would put butter on top, mold them together, sprinkle it with a little bit of top. And it was delicious. And ready and hot. That was too much. And it was delicious. And ready and hot. That was too much. And it was delicious. And ready and hot. That was too much. It's typically and it was delicious. And ready and hot. Almost like really it's typically and it was delicious. And ready and hot. Almost like it's typically and it was delicious. Almost like
It's
Occasion. It's just everywhere all the time. You can eat it at any time of the day. It's without a doubt the food that I miss. On occasion. It's just everywhere all the time. You can eat it at any time of the day. It's without a doubt. Black bean soup is definitely something that I grew up eating, and it's very iconic in Brazil. Almost everyone eats it.
My favorite comfort food has to be full, which is fava beans, and it's usually served hot, and it's really easy to make, so that's why we make it all the time. It contains tomatoes, onions. Some people put tahina in it, and we put in it a lot of spices. Usually people eat it with pita bread. It's my favorite comfort food because over the summer my grandpa would make it for breakfast a lot, so I'd wake up and it would be there. So it reminds me a lot of home.
As social beings, social distancing may not be easy. Let's do what we can and make the most of it by enjoying our favorite comfort foods.
Many of us know desserts to be the last guilty pleasure after a meal. But did you know that before the 17th century in Europe, what we know as desserts were used to cleanse the palate between courses?
In many parts of the world, sugar was a rare and expensive ingredient. It wasn't until colonists generated and expanded the production of sugar fields through slave labor that the price of sugar was lowered. By the mid-17th century, cookbooks dedicated to desserts were published. With many different textures, colors, and flavors, here are some of the best desserts that exist around the world. This sweet treat got its name from the politician Eduardo Gomes, who ran for president of Brazil in the 1940s. Brigadeiros, which were inspired by Gomes's military rank, brigadier, quickly became a popular treat sold by women who supported him at rallies. He lost the election, but the bite-sized treat lives on. It is made with condensed milk, butter, and cocoa powder and covered with chocolate sprinkles. In Nigeria, the act of repeating a word twice is deeply embedded in the culture. It is used for clarity and emphasis. Puff puff is deep-fried dough sprinkled with powdered sugar in some cases, and it can be served as both an appetizer and a dessert, savory or sweet.
When I first think of mochi, I think of the mochi ice cream in boxes sold at Trader Joe's. But that's just the American take on the famous dessert.
Mochi is actually a rice cake made from mochi gome. This rice becomes glutinous when boiled and doughy when steamed. Water and air are huge factors in the transformation of mochi gome to the mochi dessert that we know. Water prevents the mochi from being a sticky mess, and air contributes to the gooey stretch. The word tembleque is associated with the Spanish word temblar, which means to jiggle or tremble. This definitely represents the consistency of this dessert. A coconut pudding or custard if you wish, tembleque is a holiday dessert that has numerous variations throughout Latin America. But no matter where you are, it is best eaten cold. Legend has it that chimney cakes were invented by women in Transylvania during the Mongol invasion in 1241. In order to convince the Mongols that they would outlive them during a stalemate, the women of Transylvania came up with a plan that mixed flour with water wrapped around a wooden stick. This gave the illusion of large portions of bread, but they were in fact hollow on the inside. Starving and disappointed, the Mongols left, and chimney cakes went on to be popular in both Romania and Hungary.
This next dessert takes us here. It's a little cupcake bake shop in New York, home to one of my favorite American desserts. And no, it is not apple pie. Many people wonder, is red velvet cake simply just chocolate cake with red food dye? And the answer is not exactly. Though the dessert has cocoa powder as one of the ingredients, it also calls for vinegar and buttermilk. The acidic flavors mixed with the cream cheese frosting makes for a dessert that cocoa powder as one of the ingredients. It also calls for vinegar and buttermilk. To a marketing ploy by an American food coloring company. During the Great Depression, in order to boost sales, the Adams Extract Company added red food coloring by an American velvet cake in order to give it the bright, distinct color that we know today. So as demand for the dessert increased, so did their revenue.
Banoffee pie